Picture this: torrential rain batters the Interlagos circuit as the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix roars to life. The air is thick with tension. Midfield teams expect to survive, not to triumph. Among them is Jordan, a team struggling for results, a team few would bet on. But in Formula One, sometimes genius emerges when it's least expected. This is the story of the greatest strategy call ever, how Giancarlo Fisichella, with the right calls from his pit wall, scripted the most unlikely victory during absolute chaos. That weekend, the weather seemed as if it wanted to participate in the race. From Friday's practice sessions to Sunday's start, relentless downpours soaked the track, pooling rivers of water at every turn. Drivers spun out in nearly every session, and the grid assembled under grey skies and the rumble of thunder. For Jordan, whose car struggled for outright pace, the rain offered a different sort of opportunity. A race that would reward quick thinking, risk, and nerve instead of just speed. Fisichella started 8th, his car fueled heavy thanks to an early call by Jordan's strategists. At the time, even Fisichella was baffled by the decision. Pitting on lap 7 before the race had settled dropped him to the back of the field. Most would consider this a strategic blunder, but the brains on Jordan's pit wall had studied the forecast and the rules and saw something few others did. Should the race be stopped after 3/4 of the scheduled laps, full points would be awarded, and whoever was leading would win. But to even be in the mix required a gamble right from the start. The race itself was a study in survival. Interlagos became a minefield, with rivers of water flowing across the track at turn 3, catching out even the best. One by one, drivers behind and ahead of Fisichella crashed out. Montoya, Schumacher, Button, and so many others met the barriers. With every retirement, the gamble grew more daring. Fisichella held on, keeping the car pointed in the right direction as more and more high-profile cars fell by the wayside. His steady hands on a treacherous circuit kept Jordan's hopes alive amid the mounting wreckage. As chaos reigned, other teams were slow to adapt. McLaren's David Coulthard led but pitted later than ideal. Top teams struggled with tire choices and fuel windows. The Jordan crew, doing their homework, gave Fisichella enough fuel to carry him further than most, waiting for the inevitable, one more major incident to bring proceedings to a halt. Their focus was no longer on simply running their race, but on positioning themselves perfectly as the conditions worsened, and the likelihood of a red flag increased by the lap. The decisive moment began with a dramatic sequence of crashes. Mark Webber lost control of his Jaguar and hit the wall violently, scattering debris across the final corners. As marshals raced to attend, Fernando Alonso, unable to avoid the wreckage, smashed into a tire at speed, launching himself into the barriers in a terrifying scene. Safety cars had already been stretched thin, now the race had to be stopped entirely, safety taking precedence over everything else. As the red flag was flown, Fisichella, who had just pulled off a stunning overtake on Kimi Räikkönen a few laps earlier, crossed the line in the lead. His Jordan, battered but unbowed, entered the pit lane with flames licking from the engine cover, a bizarre and iconic image. Amid confusion, teams scrambled to interpret the regulations. For a few surreal moments, the underdog team dared to believe what had just happened. The realization that methodical planning and brave calls had put them at the summit set in slowly, almost as if fearing someone would notice the script had been rewritten. The initial aftermath was a communications mess. Official timing screens flickered, unsure of which lap was official. At first, McLaren's Kimi Räikkönen was declared the winner, a decision that left Jordan aggrieved. But the FIA, poring over timing sheets and video evidence, determined that Fisichella was indeed leading when the race-ending red flag should have been counted. 5 long days later, the victory was finally and officially given to Fisichella, overturning the podium and rewriting the record books. For Fisichella and the Jordan crew, the win was more than just a points tally. It was validation of everything that makes Formula One both ruthless and beautiful. Few would argue that outright luck was involved. The conditions were freakish and the race was an endurance test. But luck only favored Jordan because they placed themselves in a position to win, reading the weather and the rules better than their rivals. The celebrations, tinged with disbelief and joy, belonged not just to the driver, but to every strategist, mechanic, and analyst who embraced the gamble. The strategy behind the victory was a masterclass in reading not just the race but the very nature of Formula One. Jordan's engineers factored in probabilities from the weather forecast, analyzed the rate of retirements, and weighed the benefits of risking it all on an early pit stop. Their data-driven decision meant their car was optimally fueled and shod with the right tires at precisely the right moment, ready when fate and nature intervened. The gamble was rooted in cold logic, but pulled off with hot-blooded passion. In the days and weeks after, the story of Interlagos 2003 became a Formula One legend. Fisichella, previously a quiet figure on the grid, was now a Grand Grand Prix winner. Jordan, who just months earlier faced down financial ruin, had given its loyal staff a final unforgettable triumph. And for fans, the drama, helped by flames pouring from the victorious car, was a reminder that the brightest moments in sport are never written in advance, but crafted in the eye of a storm. The victory was remarkable for many reasons. It was Fisichella's first Grand Prix win, the last ever for Jordan, the last for a Ford engine, and the first for an Italian driver in more than a decade. The shockwaves it sent through the paddock were immense. Rival team bosses, seasoned journalists, and longtime fans all agreed. The 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix proved that in F1, cunning and daring can upend the established order just as dramatically as speed ever could. Looking back today, the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix is recognized as one of the sport's all-time great races, not simply for its crash-strewn spectacle, but for the unflinching resolve of a team who refused to play it safe. Their strategic genius is still studied in classrooms and garages worldwide. In F1, where the fastest often win, sometimes the smartest and the bravest ride home with the biggest prize of all. For Jordan and Giancarlo Fisichella, that rainy Sunday in São Paulo was the day everything finally came together, proof that greatness in Formula One is just as likely to come from the pit wall as from behind the wheel.